Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. If you're just joining us, we are in the third episode of a series on what the heck modal jazz is, and we're using the incredible Milestones by Miles Davis, and specifically the alto solo that Cannonball Adderley plays on it as our vehicle for this. In the first video, we looked at the head, using the melody line and making it into a chord melody. And in the second video, we learnt the first 16 bars of his solo, where he solos over the 16 bar A section. This week, we're going to look at his B section, and this is where he plays over an A Aeolian vamp for 16 bars. And then we're going to take a look at the final A section, which is 8 bars, where he goes back to the G Dorian vamp that he had in the first A section. Before we do that, I just want to say a big thanks to all my patrons this week. I had a lovely chat with Serge this week about transcribing and about John Schofield over Zoom, and it's really nice that this community is thriving on Patreon. So thanks to everyone who's signed up, and thanks and welcome to all of the new subscribers to the YouTube channel as well. I really appreciate the feedback and the encouragement. It really does help me in making more of these. So if you'd like to get the transcriptions and all of the exercise, scale, chord packs, and some extras, and also the backing tracks for everything that we're looking at, then Patreon's the place to go to do that. Link is on the screen here. If you want to support me but you don't want to do a subscription thing, then there's a link to buy me a coffee in the show notes below. And if you can't do any of that, but you want to show some support, then just hit that subscribe button and the like. And if you want some updates on when I release new content, then just hit the bell. So let's get on with it. So part 1, we're going to take a look at the first half of the B section, the first 8 bars of it. As a quick reminder, the structure of his solo is the same as the head. So we've got an A section, which is 16 bars long, where he's playing over a G Dorian vamp. And then we've got a B section, which is also 16 bars long, where he's playing over an A Aeolian vamp. And then we've got a final A section where he's playing back over that G Dorian vamp for 8 bars. And then Cannonball repeats this structure twice in his solo before he hands over. The chords underneath the B section all have a pedal tone of A underneath it. So the chords are C major 7 with an A in the bass, D minor 7 with an A in the bass, E minor 7 with an A in the bass, and F major 7 with an A in the bass. Here's a recap. Chords are all derived from the notes of the C major scale, so the chords are harmonized using the notes of the C major scale, starting on each degree of the C major scale. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and that gives you the chords of C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7, A minor 7, B half diminished, which is a minor 7 flat 5, and then C major 7 again as the octave. So as we said, there is no hierarchy of chords when you're working in Dorian. In the first video, I talked more in depth about modal jazz, so go and take a look at that if you want to get a bit more info. But just as a very short recap, in modal jazz, there's no hierarchy of chords. So any chord is just as equal as the next one. It's not like in conventional harmony where you've got a 2-5-1 and you're heading to that 1 and everything is gravitating towards that tonic 1. So you'll hear the accompanist, Red Garland, underneath being really free with his use of chords underneath. And he is using, as far as I'm aware, he's using all of the chords that are available to him, which is those chords derived from the C major scale, which is the parental scale in this case. So the scale that Cannonball is using for soloing over the top of this is the A Aeolian mode, which is the mode that starts on the 6th note of the C major scale. So here's the C major scale. And then here is the A Aeolian mode, using the notes of the C major scale, but starting on A. So you'll hear that it's got a different flavor than the C major scale. It's more minor. And this is sometimes called the natural minor or the relative minor. And as I've said, it uses the same notes as the C major scale, just starting on the A. As there's no hierarchy of chords, a soloist like Cannonball can probably see this as a bit open-ended and vampy and can probably question what on earth are you meant to do in a situation like this to actually make something that is melodic and is actually heading somewhere. How do you make it interesting? Cannonball actually here uses a lot of bebop techniques, as we'll take a look at. So bars 1 and 2. Here he encloses a C, and it seems to be outlining an A minor arpeggio to firmly grasp the tonality. So there's that enclosure. It's a diatonic enclosure because it's using the notes from the scale. So below, above, and the note itself. And then he follows up the scale, and he's really pinpointing on the strong beats the notes from the A minor 7 arpeggio. That arpeggio is this. And he's pinpointing the A, the G, going into the C, and then the A. And that's the 5th, the flat 7, the flat 3rd, and the A. So he's really hammering home that tonality. We are in A minor. So using chord tones is something that a lot of jazz players do, especially in the bebop tradition, to spell out the chords and the harmony underneath. So Cannonball's using that technique here. Bars 3 and 4. He's using legato on here. So transferring that phrase, that line onto the guitar using legato. This is a little bit tricky because it's quite fast, so it's worth practicing your legato. If you're unfamiliar with legato, legato is basically where we make a smooth phrase and use as few pick strokes in the right hand as possible to make it nice and fluid. So the way we can do this is with hammer-ons and pull-offs, with slides, and with bends. And here I'm just opting to use hammer-ons and pull-offs. The trick with this, to make it sound like really fluid and really vocal, is to make sure that each note has a similar, if not the same volume as the last one. And that's the tricky bit, because when you're hammering on, you've got to hammer on with control to make sure that you're not making notes pop out. A good technique to use is to plug into a DAW, so Logic, Pro Tools, GarageBand or whatever, and look at your waveform on there and see if you can make it all nice and level on there as you go through your scale. And this is a really good exercise for this, going through the A Aeolian mode, using 3 notes per string and using your hammer-on legato. You can equally repeat this by using pull-offs and going backwards. The next kind of tricky thing to consider, especially in this passage, is his use of triplets. If you're unfamiliar with triplets, then do what I did when I first started learning subdivisions. I basically set up a little exercise where I took a single note through the subdivisions from crotchets. So that's crotchets, then quavers, then triplet quavers, and then semiquavers. So an exercise kind of like this. And then when you get really confident with it, then you can start to add other notes and take some of the notes away from the triplet, like the first triplet or the second triplet or the third, and leave the other ones in, just to kind of create a weird rhythm that gives you the exercise. So looking at bars 5 to 8, here I think Cannonball's doing a little bit of superimposing over the top of the A minor vamp. I think he's actually taking a D minor and he's superimposing a D minor, and then before he's doing that, he's actually superimposing an A7 over the top of it. So if you look in the line as he plays it, he actually plays a C sharp. So in this super chromatic line, which is really cool, I think he's really outlining an A7 to go back to D minor, because that line that kind of comes after it, he's got the F and the A in the top of it as well. So it's all this kind of minor tonality. And he's got that C sharp before it. So that leads me to believe that what he's doing is he's superimposing that over the top of the A Aeolian. And, you might be thinking, well, there's no C sharp in A Aeolian, so, that's not modal anymore. But what he's doing is he's adding something and he's being creative. And this is what I think Mars was after when he was kind of setting up these vamps. He was getting them to break away from having to think too much about the chords that are going on underneath and really think about melody. And think about the phrases and what creative things can they do to make this melody more interesting. And this is exactly what Cannonball's doing here. He's putting over the top conventional harmony of a 5-1. So no, it's not modal what he's doing there. But he's being really creative because the mode that we're in is a minor mode and it's an A minor mode. And what he's doing is a 5-1 into D minor. And if you remember, D minor is also a mode of C major. It's the Dorian in there. So what he's doing is a 5-1 into D minor. So he's bringing out some other flavors from the modes that are derived from the parental scale of C major. And he's putting that into the A Aeolian. So he's fully making use of the fact that there's no hierarchy in here. And this is making, some really cool diatonic dissonance in there. So I think this is great. I think this is probably what Mars was absolutely after. So let's look at the second half of this B section now. So looking at this little section here, this is really sparse and is outlining an A minor arpeggio again, just like it was doing earlier, just to kind of really hem in that tonality. And he's using all manner of subdivisions here. So here we see a crotchet triplet. So that's where you're basically kind of trying to squeeze 3 crotchets equally over 2 beats. So you'll see on the transcription, you've got 3 crotchets and then a little link over the top of it and a number 3, which basically means it's a crotchet triplet. And that's that bit, that da 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 that he plays, that's quite staccato. And I think he's using these kind of subdivisions again just to create interest in there. And, it's fairly spacey as well, which again, I think that's kind of what Mars was after. If you listen to any of the stuff from Kinda Blue, it all sounds quite spacey in there. He's created these vamps so that, the soloists can float over the top of it. So let's look at the next kind of portion of this section, which is the last part of the B section. So here he's back to outlining D minor again, and this time specifically he's outlining a D minor 9. And then there's a really lovely chromatic run, which I do with some legato. And he's heading back towards the land of G Dorian, and I think that's really sensible that he's doing it with chromatic rather than kind of trying to create some kind of 5-1. I mean, you could do that. You could play like a D7 kind of type thing or some kind of altered D thing over the top of, what is going on in the Aeolian area to get back into G Dorian. But I think what Cannonball's doing here is pretty cool. And, it just speaks of his style as well, which is, kind of fairly sprightly. So now we're back in G Dorian land again. So this is the last part. So here he descends into this section, into the G Dorian section. I think that's really cool because, going from A minor down to G, is a descent anyway. So I think it's cool that he's doing descending into the G Dorian. given the lack of hierarchy with the chords, he's free to do whatever the hell he wants to do here. And that's exactly what he does, because he outlines a C7 arpeggio. And to me, it sounds a little bit like the Star Trek theme. I'm pretty sure he's quoting something here, and I was trying to figure out what on earth it was that he was quoting, but could not find it anywhere. Trawled for a little while on the internet and just thought this is a bit of a waste of my time because it's just anecdotal. So if you know what the quote is that he's using here, then let me know what it is. But it does sound like it's already an existing melody. Could be just that it's a very strong melody though. So this is a C7 arpeggio. Here's the arpeggio isolated. This is super clever what he's doing here. I mean, you know, the chords that are going on here, those chords G minor 7, A minor 7, B major 7, and he's outlining a C7 over the top of it, creating all manner of diatonic dissonance here and everything. So I think it's cool what he's doing. I think this is really great, and it's something that we can use in our own solos. So, you know, try doing that. Obviously C7 is part of the F major parental scale, so it's part of the G Dorian family as well. The chord that would be associated with it would be C7. So, you know, all of those notes are valid within it. You know, given there's no hierarchy, he can use it. So I would try using that and other ones in there as well. Now he stays on this for a little while, and then he starts to kind of do a 5-1 into F, or at least that's kind of what I kind of read into it anyway, where he's doing that. So that, all of that stuff there kind of really sounds F kind of to me. And then back to C again. And then I think, you know, kind of what he's doing here when he's going up to the top there, you know, he's heading for that A, the major third of F. And then he kind of comes down descending. And he descends in thirds and also in fourths, that all thirds and then fourths. And then that there is a sixth there. But I think it's really useful to, you know, to draw on this. It's really useful to learn your scale in thirds and in fourths so that you can use this kind of sequence in your own soloing. So this you could see as G Dorian. I've started it from F because I think, you know, given the fact that you might well be only just starting into modes, you might find it a bit confusing kind of doing it in thirds and fourths from G Dorian. So I've done it from F here. But remember, it's the same notes as what would be in G Dorian and any of the other modes from the F major scale. So you can use it anywhere. So here they are. So to sum up for this whole thing, Cannonball's using lots and lots of bebop techniques. So, you know, we saw chromaticism, enclosure, we saw him superimposing 5-1s all over the place. And I think this is what Miles was intending for him to do, and for all of the soloists on this to do, was to basically not have to worry too much about all of the harmony that's going on underneath because there's no hierarchy, and get really super creative, break free from all of the chords underneath. So this is a really cool place to start. Why not try using some of this stuff in your own playing? So, you know, maybe just start with one technique, like, for instance, using the enclosure technique that Cannonball uses on there. So enclosing notes to really spell out the A minor underneath it. Thanks for watching. If you got this far into it, don't forget that all of the resources for this are all over on my Patreon channel. The link is here somewhere, and the link for Buy Me a Coffee is below if you want to support by just thanking me for this lesson. If you can't do any of that, and that's completely understandable given the pretty gross circumstances that are going on right now, then just hit the subscribe and hit the like button. And if you want to get updates for when I put new videos up, then the bell is to do that. And I think that's down here, I think. Apart from that, that's all from me this week. Next week, we're going to take a look at Cannon's second go round of the structure, so we'll be back in the A section. We'll see what he does. So happy practicing, and I'll see you next week. See ya.